Hi, I'm glad you're here. Welcome back to the Peak channel. I'm glad that you're here, and I'm hoping that you're finding this helpful. If you are, I also hope that you would be able to share your links to the YouTube channel with others who might be struggling with parental estrangement. And today, I'd like to try to address the question, whose fault is it? So, with that question being out in the air, it's out there so many times with parents and children who are estranged that come into my office, whether they come in together to work on a reconciliation or to try and understand the estrangement, or whether they come in separately to deal with the residual effects of estrangement, the pain and the trauma, and all of the different symptoms that go along with those things. So, because there are a lot of different types of estrangement, I just want to name those before we get into talking about whose fault it is, because their types of estrangement address different ways that estrangement comes about, and it can feel like it's important to place blame, but it really never helps reconciliation, nor does it help recovery to be able to feel like you can carry all the blame or that you can place all the blame on somebody else. The types of estrangement that are out there, and I'm not naming all of them, but there is parental alienation that can cause estrangement. There are third-party estrangements that are caused because adult child feels a really strong tug of loyalty toward another person other than their parent, or other than both parents, and it might just be one parent that they're feeling loyal there to. Are estrangements that are a result of entitlement, where an adult child feels like they're entitled to something that they're not getting. And so there, with the different types of estrangement and us looking at whose fault it is, it becomes clear that the uniqueness of each type of estrangement will lend itself to different approaches. However, when we're talking about whose fault it is, it doesn't matter in the end. So when I say that it doesn't matter, the reason it doesn't matter is because it's going to take two people to create a reconciliation. And I've never met a family who was going through estrangement that felt as if one person or the other person were bad to me, that it felt to me like they were good or bad people. They're all good people in bad situations who are trying to make the most of the time that they have to, in most cases, if they're in my office, to either make the relationship work or to deal with it on their own, because right at the moment, reconciliation is not an option. When it gets right down to it, it ends up being that it's the dynamic between the people who are estranged that is really at the root of it all. Usually neither person is a bad person, but they cannot make it work. So the idea of trying to find out whose fault it is really not going to be helpful, and it's a waste of time. So the better question is, what are the responsibilities of anybody who's involved in estrangement if they are interested in getting past the estrangement? Either, when I say getting past it, I mean, if I'm going to have to live with this estrangement, how do I live with it? And that is what we call recovery. Or how do we get past it in the sense of how do we reconcile? And so it's the responsibility that we look at, not the fault of any one person. And the responsibility falls on the shoulders of everybody who's interested in reconciliation. And that would involve being able to, in yourself, work on what it means to be able to hear and understand and accept somebody else's point of view, even if it's different than yours, because that's their reality. And understanding where they're coming from, not accepting it as your truth, but as their truth, is a really important part of this responsibility. And unless two people who are involved in an estrangement can both work at understanding that the other person may have a point of view that's different than mine, but will help me understand why they did what they did, is going to be really helpful. And in doing so, what we're looking at is what is called a co-created narrative. Before a co-created narrative, during the time of estrangement, there's my story, there's the other person's story, and then there's our story. And so in doing this, we learn to recognize what role we may have played in that estrangement process. And it may be unintentional, totally, that we never had any idea how our behavior was affecting the other person. Our children see things so much differently than we do. They don't know what we know about our lives, and in many cases, it's not our job, nor is it appropriate, to be telling our children our adult problems. And so they may have no idea that during this 4 or 5 year period in their life when they claim you're absent, that you were working 2 or 3 jobs to support the family. And just sharing pieces of information like that, or sharing your motivation with your adult child, can be really helpful in helping create this co-created narrative. So it isn't about whose fault the estrangement is. It's about the responsibility that each person holds in creating the co-created narrative. In the case of recovery, you aren't ever sure when that opportunity may present itself. You're not sure if or when your child is going to be open to working at a reconciliation in the relationship. So don't let that time be wasted when you are in an act of estrangement. Part of the work in recovery is learning to take somebody else's point of view into a true consideration, not just paying lip service. Part of recovery is recognizing that it's not completely anybody's fault. It's the dynamic that's at work with two people that is creating the rift and the problems that they are dealing with. There may be outside factors as well. So spending time trying to figure out whose fault it is really not going to make you feel better in recovery, and it isn't going to help with reconciliation either. So it's an important move to get past trying to decide whose fault it is. Instead, looking at what role may I have played, what was my part in the dynamic that may have been misinterpreted. And for most estranged parents, they really understand that something's been misinterpreted because they've heard the stories and it's just not making sense to them, the story that their child is telling. And that's because it's coming from a point of view that you don't yet understand. So in the work of recovery, we try to help people learn how to take their child's point of view or even another person's point of view, because many times you don't have your child to work with that during recovery. They're not interested at that point in working towards reconciliation. So you're working towards recovery. And this work can be done with absolutely any relationship in your life. And the better you get at it, whether you're working at it with a partner, with your other children who are not estranged, with a colleague, a coworker, all of those people you can work with them and they won't even know it. They won't even know what you're doing. It's your own personal work that you can do anywhere in the world with any person in your life. And that's a really important piece to be able to develop a part of yourself, to be able to develop so that when the opportunity for reconciliation presents itself, you are ready for that reconciliation. I hope this has been helpful, and if it has, please feel free to share this video with others who may be dealing with parental estrangement from their adult children. And if you would like to know every time we upload a video, please subscribe below under the video by hitting the subscribe button. And when you do, a little bell icon will pop up and you can click on the bell next to all. And then every time a video is uploaded, you'll get a notification that there has been a new video uploaded, and then you can come to see it. Thank you again for spending time with us. I hope this has been helpful. Take care.